Hey, good morning to everybody. It's Daryl, aka Artist in Recovery here, and I'm doing this video from the exercise room while I'm on the treadmill. And the reason I do this is because I get an idea for a video in my head, and as I think about it more, it starts to gather steam. I start to form these ideas and reasons, and memories come back to me about how I could explain it by examples of things that happened to me, and I feel like I have to make the video right away, because I was thinking about waiting to make the video until I'm in a better position, until like I'm in my little studio up in my apartment, or I'm on my bike or something like that. And I don't want to do that because I'll forget, everything that I've got all put together in my mind right now. So what I want to talk about is if you have somebody in your life that you believe is struggling with addiction or using or drinking, I'm going to give you some advice, and it's based on what worked for me and what works for a majority of addicts and alcoholics. And that is, you could call it tough love, but you basically have to cut that person off. And I'm going to explain why. I mean, if you are paying this person's bills, if you're paying for their cell phone or their car insurance, or their car loan, or their apartment, or letting them live there, or buying their food, or in any way contributing to paying their way, that is contributing to their addiction. And I'll explain that. It's not helping them. When I was using, it wasn't partying anymore. It was a way of life. It was the way I had become accustomed to surviving, to living in my everyday existence. And the thought of anybody changing that scared me, scared the hell out of me. My heart would start pounding, but I would show that in anger. So if somebody threatened to take away some of the help they were giving me, I would explode. I would start yelling at them. You don't understand. Why are you trying to rule? Why are you trying to make things so much harder on me? I've already got it hard. I'm trying to deal with this the best I can, and this isn't helping me. Why are you working against me? And basically, that's bullshit. As long as people kept allowing me to function the same way or misfunction, the same way every day, I was going to keep doing that, because that's the only way I knew at that time. That's what I had become accustomed to. That's what I had become addicted to. And anybody threatening to take away, the help they were giving me, or my place to live, or anything like that, scared me. And I would threaten them. I would explode. And this is what happened in my life. It all came to a head. I had been borrowing money from my family for my drugs all the time. My mother and my stepfather were both hardworking postal employees. They made good money, and I would go to them every single day. And I'm ashamed to even admit this, and borrow thousands of dollars. I went through thousands of dollars that I had in a bank account, and then I started going through their money. And any mother loves their son, and she kept doing this, and it kept getting harder. She knew that I had an addiction problem, but she would still keep giving me the money. So I would start using tactics that I am just incredibly ashamed of, but I would start threatening that I would hurt myself. And one day I went and saw her on her mail route, and I had cut my arms, not really trying to hurt myself, but to get sympathy. Like I said, and it's embarrassing even saying this 20 years later, but I cut my arms with a steak knife. And I walked up to her. She was parked on the side of the road taking a break in her mail truck. And this was after years of leeching money off my family every single day. And she had just had enough. And she looked at me, and I showed her my arms, the cuts on my arms, which wasn't a real attempt. And she just looked at me with a look of disgust. And she just said, "Daryl, this is it. I'm washing my hands of you. I can't do this anymore." And I was shocked. I was. That was not the result. That was not what I thought the result was going to be. I thought she might be a little upset. She might be a little concerned for me. Give me some money, tell me get some help. Do something about this. I love you. That's not what she said. She was at the end of her rope, and she said, "No, I don't care anymore. Or if I do care anymore, I can't do this anymore. So I'm done with you, Daryl. That's what she said to me. Now that was the best thing she could have done for me. And at the same time, I had been going to detoxes and rehabs at hospitals. Like after every 3 or 4 months, I'd run out of money. I'd get in a jam. My house was destroyed. My apartment was just destroyed from using using it every day and night. I owed money. People were chasing me. People were trying to find me. My lies were getting found out. And about every 3 months, I would put myself into a hospital. I would go and tell them that, I can't do this. I can't do this another day. I'm going to end it. I need help with my addiction. But looking back, I wasn't really making an honest effort. And I had been in and out of these detoxes 13 to 14 times. And right around this same time, back in 2005, the doctor that took me in, that usually saw me at the hospital, said to me, he said, Daryl, we're not doing this anymore. He says, you've been here 14 times. Nothing's changing. You're back here every 3 months. This isn't working. There's no point in doing this anymore. When you come back here next time, we're not taking you in. Maybe some other hospital will take you in. And that shocked me. That stunned me. I got serious. And for the first time, when I went into the rehab and detox that time, the doctors had been suggesting that I try methadone maintenance. And I had never heard anything good about that. I said to them, why should I be addicted to this drug? I'm just going to do this myself. So I always poo-pooed the Suboxone or the methadone, the medically assisted treatment. But because I was running out of rope, I had nowhere else to do, nothing else to, the doctor kept suggesting this, and I had never tried it. So I tried it. And about 3 weeks into going to the treatment, I had this moment of clarity where I realized I felt good for the first time, like just from taking the prescription as I was supposed to. I was like, oh my God, I might be able to actually get clean. I had a moment of clarity. But here's where the clinic did the same thing with me. They got tough because after I kept using. I would have dirty urines, every other week or so. And after about 4 or 5 months at the clinic, I was very hopeful. I was like, wow, I could do this. I can get clean. It was very important to me. But then my counselor said, this shit has to stop. That was her exact words. This shit has to stop. If you do give us more dirty urines, we're going to detox you and put you out of the program, which scared the hell out of me. And I cried. I remember I actually drove to a parking lot. I was 40 years old, and I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot and started crying. And I was like, how dare her, and she swore at me. She said, shit, my counselor, I remember actually saying that to myself while I was crying in the car, feeling sorry for myself. How could they do that to me? They don't understand. By the way, I did a video saying what addicts really mean when they say you don't understand, because all addicts say that. You don't understand. If you only understood. And so I did the hardest thing in my life. And I actually got clean. And here's the not funny thing, but the bizarre thing. For weeks, I kept buying my usual fix. And it wasn't working anymore. And I knew it wasn't working because the methadone was blocking it. But I still kept buying it. That's how bad, that's how deep the addiction was. I kept spending that money every single day as I was going to the clinic, knowing that it wasn't doing anything because it was being blocked. My body was blocking it, and my receptors in my brain were blocking, the methadone was blocking the drugs. But yet I still kept buying it. Spending that $35, that's how deep the addiction went. That's how I functioned every day. To me, it was like breathing or eating. And that's why when anybody threatened that, it scared the hell out of me. It's like saying, somebody's going to suffocate you. Somebody's going to take away your air. That's what it felt like. That's why addicts get so angry. It's really fear. It's fear that their way of life, as they know it, is going to end, and they're going to have to learn another way to survive the right way. So what you have to do is you have to draw a line with somebody you love if they're an addict or an alcoholic, and you give them no more aid, no more, in other words, I've heard this said on the show Intervention: I'll do everything I can to help you get clean, but I will not do anything, not for one more day, to let this continue, this addiction to continue on. I will not do one more thing. They said something along those lines, and that's it. You can call it tough love if you want, you can call it whatever, but that's what works, is you have to force addiction. Addiction is tough. It's a way, it's not partying, it's the only way that addicts have learned to function, and it terrifies them to think that they're gonna have to change that, or it's gonna be taken away from them. And you have to use everything at your disposal to push them into recovery. And that means cutting off all help. If that means, some people are afraid that their relatives are going to live on the street, or they're going to die out on the street. And more than likely, that's not going to happen. The addict is going to be forced into recovery. They're going to be forced to do the thing they fear most, and that's giving up their crutch, giving up their addiction. That's the truth. I've been clean and sober since October 23rd of 2006. 18 years and almost 9 months now. The recovery is possible. Not always easy. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it is possible. Have a good day.